What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy. Want to wish you a very happy Tuesday, April the 8th, 2025. You and I are here live in the Bleacher Report app to talk all things Dallas Cowboys. Going to be talking Dallas Cowboys draft, best and worst case scenarios in the first round. So if you're with us live in the Bleacher Report app, what's up? I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's every Tuesday and Thursday, not just leading up to the draft, not just during the draft, obviously, not just immediately after, but we're going to be live every Tuesday and Thursday in the middle of May, June, July, so on and so forth. I'll also be live in the app after Dallas Cowboys games this coming season. And all these videos are obviously available for you on demand in the Bleacher Report app, as well as on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If you ever have any questions, you can hit me up on social media, X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa. Just search for RJ Ochoa on Blue Sky. If email is more your thing, RJ.Ochoa at SBNation.com. All right. Happy Masters Week to everybody. It is one of the very best weeks in the sporting year. So very much looking forward to it. I am definitely picking Rory McIlroy, and I am fully prepared to be hurt again. Why am I doing this? Because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I line up for the ball no matter what Lucy does each and every single time. All right. So I mentioned we were going to be talking draft. It's going to be kind of the theme of things, obviously, for the next couple of weeks. Got a few more things planned for next week in the Bleacher Report app and obviously on the YouTube channel. So just make sure you follow along, obviously, so you're not missing anything. Now, today we are talking best and worst case scenarios for the Cowboys in the first round. I think that we all have an idea of how we want this thing to go. I think we all have an idea of how we would be pretty pissed. It is pretty difficult to mess up having the 12th overall pick. Consider the last time the Cowboys were picking this high was 4 years ago in 2021. They were originally at the 10th overall slot, Dallas was, before trading down to 12, where they currently sit with the Philadelphia Eagles, and ultimately settled for Micah Parsons, my fellow Bleacher Report content creator. So that worked out nicely. So let's use this as kind of a launching point. We are recording. I was going to say it is on Tuesday, but on Tuesday, Mel Kiper released his latest mock draft. Obviously, it's mock draft season galore right now. And I think it's important to mention that this is the time of year where mock drafts are both crazy and super valuable, because right now teams are holding everything super, super close to the vest. Let me pause this so it's not playing in the background there. And at the same time, draft experts are also just firing off all their legitimate intel because it's going to expire soon enough. So you have to read through the tea leaves a little bit here, and I don't think you could take everything super seriously. But it is obviously very valuable because these are people who are very, very plugged into the NFL. So this was a 2-round mock draft for Mel Kiper, and in the first round, this is one of those ways that we can be pissed, or that we would be pissed, I think, as Dallas Cowboys fans. So Mel Kiper has Dallas, and this is a name that has been mocked to Dallas in the past. Obviously, there's kind of a handful now at this point. Early in the process, it was just Ashton Jeanty, but this is a different runner. This is Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. The blurb that Mel Kiper has here, if I can read it for you, says, "I was torn here as I think Dallas will look at all offensive playmakers." I'm with you here, Mel. It needs a difference-making wide receiver 2 to take some of the load off CeeDee Lamb. Totally agree. But I'm not sure Texas's Matthew Golden or Arizona's Tet McMillan will go quite this early. All right, here's where I would like to stop, because if the Cowboys take a running back, forget all the other variables for a second here. If they take a running back in the first round, we can riot. I mean, I don't know that we'll ever reach the stages of riot that we did that Friday night that they hired Brian Schottenheimer, but we can riot. We can be very pissed off. In fact, last week, one of our writers at Blog on the Boys, this was LP Cruz, he wrote a fantastic article over at BTB, which was titled "The 3 Worst Things the Cowboys Can Do with the 12th Pick." Apologies to Jamie Erdahl. I didn't mean to pause it in that exact moment. Number 1 was trading up. Definitely don't want to see the Cowboys trading up. And number 2, I disagree with LP slightly here, but drafting a running back not named Ashton Jeanty. I don't want to see the Cowboys draft a running back at all with the 12th overall pick. I know that there are still people out there, those Jeanty truthers. I know that Hampton even has a little bit of a hive, but this isn't about Jeanty. This isn't about Hampton. This is simply about the resource. You just cannot use this on a running back and expect to build a legitimate roster. You can't. And you can sit here and you can talk about rightfully Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, and you can even toss out Aaron Jones and, Joe Mixon if you want, these players, these runners that had these great seasons last year. None of those were first-round picks. Obviously, we've seen first-round picks thrive at some point in the NFL over the last decade. Zeke Elliott among them, Bijan Robinson kind of the latest, but you can use free agency and the suppressed market of the running back position to your advantage. The Cowboys are still a little bit on the extreme end of the spectrum with signing Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. But the point is, this is one of the literal worst ways that the Cowboys could utilize the 12th overall pick. Trading up was the other, and trading out of the first round entirely is the third as far as the way LP sees it. I agree with all of that. If the Cowboys did any of those things, I would be very pissed off. Trading out of the first round would only be worth it, I suppose, if there was some sort of king's ransom involved, although you're not really getting a king's ransom for the 12th overall pick. But back to the mock. Let's put this back up on your screen here. What Mel Kiper continued to say about the Cowboys selecting Omarion Hampton was, instead, I see the Cowboys trying to improve the run game, which managed 4 yards per carry and a league low 6 touchdowns last season. They have thus far replaced Rico Dowdle, who left for the Carolina Panthers, with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Neither new back has the home run ability of Hampton, who can scoot through holes and take off despite his 221-pound build. I've never been an advocate of the first-round running back, but the team owner, Jerry Jones, isn't afraid to address the position on day one. Now, I am not here to besmirch the name of Mel Kiper. This isn't a Mel Kiper doesn't know what he's talking about take. I don't feel that way at all. Mel Kiper's outstanding, does amazing work, one of the GOATs when it comes to the NFL draft. This is not a criticism of Mel Kiper. But this last line, I've taken it off your screen now here, but it says, but team owner Jerry Jones isn't afraid to address the position on day one. Yes, that's true. They drafted Zeke Elliott, but we don't have to act that way. You can put that for me in the same box as, man, Jerry's not afraid to make a splash. Have you been following this team? Again, I don't mean this poorly with regards to Mel Kiper, but that's not the way they roll. I mean, like in the same paragraph. In fact, I'll put this back up on your screen here. In the same paragraph, this reads, instead, blah, blah, they have thus far replaced Rico Dowdle, who was an undrafted free agent. Okay, so the guy they're replacing was an undrafted free agent, with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Players who we all agree are serviceable and fine veterans, but not legitimate star workhorse running backs, these lower level veteran, free agent acquisitions, right? So they replaced the undrafted free agent with the lower level veteran free. And I think that there's potential for Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders to contribute. I don't mean to besmirch them either. But so they're replacing the undrafted free agent. That's what they were rolling with, okay? With the low-level veteran free agent acquisitions, right? And one of whom is coming from the team that Rico Dowdle left towards in the Carolina Panthers. But that's the team that is not afraid to spend a first-round pick. This is, you know what I'm saying? Like in one full, this is I've highlighted it for you. In one paragraph, we're talking about that undrafted free agent who was their running back. Yeah, they replaced him with 2 low-level free agents, and but they'll totally spend a first-round pick on the position. Look, the Cowboys did spend a first-round pick on Zeke Elliott. They spent the 4th overall pick on Zeke Elliott. They gave him a $90 million contract. We've discussed this till we were literally silver and blue in the face. But just because they did this thing this one time doesn't mean that they have this propensity to do it over and over and over again. So this argument to me is incredibly hollow, just in general, beyond the fact that it would be a horrible utilization of the resource. A note that Mel Kiper includes in his blurb about the whole pick whatsoever. So I do not in any world, and this has nothing to do with Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton, that is the DEFCON 1. We smashed the glass. We hit the panic button. Cannot believe this is real life. You actually did this. Did we want the Cowboys to improve the running game over the offseason? Absolutely. Have they done that in a technical sense? Definitely. But there are runners to be had. Take either Ohio State running back. Take Cam Scadaboo, my guy. I mean, there are a lot of day 2 and day 3 options that don't involve you spending the 12th overall pick on the position. So that is by far the worst case scenario. And not only is it the worst case scenario, but I didn't read this whole, or I don't remember this whole mock off the top of my head, but as I look at it here, the picks before Dallas, we've got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Will Campbell, Mason Graham, Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders. We've got Membu to the Jets, Jalen Walker to the Panthers, Shador goes to New Orleans, Tyler Warren to the Bears, and Will Johnson to the 49ers at 11. That's also a pick I think that would be a great one for the Cowboys if they address the secondary. Obviously, we all have questions about the status of Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, but just verifying here that both Matthew Golden and Ted McMillan were off the board. Now let's put the consensus big board up on your screen so we can kind of take a look at this here. This is consensus. Shout out to NFL Mock Draft Database here. This is consensus. Again, that's the important word here. This is consensus. So it's not a shock that most of these players are gone, obviously, by the time Dallas is selecting in the mock draft in question. But Ted McMillan is right there, 10th overall pick. All right, as far as the consensus board is concerned. Let's keep going here. All right, let's just keep scrolling down. Matthew Golden here, number 20. Where's our guy, Omarion Hampton? Again, I don't mean to be binary and literal and whatever and say you're taking the consensus 25th best player, et cetera, with the 12th overall pick, but the value there is just so poor. I mean, I don't know many people, many Cowboys fans who would be down with this. It's one thing if the first 11 picks just go this way that we can't anticipate right now. This, if they truly get taken out, right? If the board is completely wiped, they just happen to get sniped, which has happened. We've seen that happen to the Cowboys in the past, and you obviously make do. In fact, the draft I mentioned, 2021, was kind of like that. We went into that expecting the Cowboys to have, at least one of Patrick Surtain or JC Horn available to them, and they went the 2 picks in front of them. So what happened when the Cowboys got on the clock in 2021? Everybody was screaming, trade back, figure it out, let the board fall to you, don't panic pick, et cetera, et cetera. And it worked out for them. So if the Cowboys were to be in a situation where Ted McMillan were available at 12 overall, where Matthew Golden were also available at 12 overall, I'm great with either of these picks. This is a wonderful way that the first round can go for the Cowboys. If you tell me that they walk away with Ted McMillan, I'm dancing. If you tell me they walk away with Will Johnson, who we talked about going to the Niners at 11 in the mock, I'm dancing. If you tell me they walk away with Matthew Golden, I still prefer Ted McMillan. Right now, if you ask me, to pick the ideal way the first round goes, I want Ted McMillan in a Dallas Cowboys jersey. And I say that as an Arizona State Sun Devil. So it is very, very difficult for me despite the Territorial Cup win. But still, this is a very, very legitimate way for the first round to shake out, even if it's Matthew Golden. Obviously, if the Cowboys trade down and are still able to land somebody like Golden, even if they trade down and land Omarion Hampton, that's still better than taking him at 12 overall. But taking Hampton is one of the absolute worst ways in which this whole thing can go for the Cowboys. And that certainly, I think, applies to Ashton Jeanty as well. He's clearly a much more highly rated prospect. He's a clearly much more consensus prospect. So if the Cowboys landed Ashton Jeanty at 12 overall, it would sting a little bit less than if it were Omarion Hampton. That would feel like the team settling for somebody just for the purposes of taking a running back. And that is a level of logic that I cannot get on board with personally. Now, I think it's important, by the way, to look at positional consensus. So let's look at the wide receivers here. And as you can see, look, I'm great with any of these. I'm great if you told me for whatever reason, even if it's at 12 or if they trade back to some sort of degree here, I'm great if the Cowboys walk away on night one with Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden, Buko, or Luther Burden. I'm not quite dancing the same song to all 4 of these situations, but I'm pumped because to me, the most important element or the most important priority, the most important mission, the most important job or most important idea that has to be accomplished or seen through during the first round specifically is you have to get better on offense. Now, there are exceptions to that idea. If you end up with Will Johnson, that's great because there's no question that secondary is a concern. And that's why it's exciting that the Cowboys have so many draft picks because I think we're all hopeful that they're going to get back in the 3rd round, jump up a little bit, use some of those day 3 picks that they have a whole treasure chest full of at this point in time. They need playmakers there. Again, we don't really know what the future is, the immediate future for Trayvon Diggs. We don't know if the long-term future for Deron Bland, if they're going to sign him. There's a world if the Cowboys don't sign Deron Bland where they're fixing their entire cornerback room next year. It's obviously more difficult than it already was going to be with Jordan Lewis leaving for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So if they walk away with Will Johnson, I know we're scared of Michigan players. Let that go. We've had that conversation a million times. That's a great utilization. So I think we've established here as we go back to the consensus board here, not the not the positional one. Let me put this back up on your screen. And even Tyler Warren, if things shook that direction, if we talk about, again, for whatever reason, maybe there was a run on receivers, right? Like we talk and we prepare for all these situations and whatnot. But if there were to be a run on the receiver position, then I think we would be, okay. I'd certainly still prefer Tyler Warren over any running back. And again, it has nothing really to do with who Ashton Jeanty and Omarion Hampton are as players. Let's put this running back group on the board. See, like, any of these options. I mean, I mentioned the 2 Buckeyes. I mentioned Cam Scatterboo, Caleb Johnson. I mean, if the Cowboys walk away, if we forget names for a second, if in some order in rounds 1 and 2, and I'm saying 1 and 2 for a reason. I'm going to put this back up on your screen in a moment here. But if in rounds 1 and 2, the Cowboys walk away with a corner and a receiver, prioritize it however you want. I would prefer they take McMillan in the first round, like I said. But if Will Johnson fell to them, they wanted to do that. They wanted maybe Ibuka last, obviously, to this, to, you know, you never know, right? We can cross our fingers and hope, but that's great. You've already taken a serious step forward towards addressing your roster. And I think that in that world, we would have reason to slightly believe in our coping sort of way. And then you want to throw your day 3, you know, your third round pick at the running back position. There's a number of dudes, and you don't even have to do that quite yet. We obviously saw last year was that 4th round where the run happened, and the Cowboys clearly don't have a 4th round pick this year, but they have enough ammunition to get back into the round if they so choose. But I think you can set your watch. I know we're here talking about ideas or you know, best and worst case scenarios for the Cowboys in the first round specifically, but as it relates to the second round, 44 overall, Mel Kiper, I told you his mock draft was 2 rounds long on Tuesday. He has the Cowboys taking Trey Amos out of Mississippi, and so that's great. If you had told me, Mel Kiper, that instead of Omarion Hampton, the Cowboys had taken Ted McMillan in your mock draft, you get an A+ from me. Like, I would be pumped. I would be thrilled. I would be over the moon. I would be dancing all night long, Saturday Night Fever style. I mean, it would be a huge, you know, sort of burst of wind in the sails of the Cowboys offense and defense to address these 2 positions specifically during the first 2 rounds. So if we rank, if we prioritize, because that's what matters here, I think the 3 best case scenarios for the Cowboys in the first round. Now, if we're putting names to this thing, because that's, you know, we're going to come back in 2 weeks and we're going to say, well, this is what we said on Tuesday, April the 8th. And so we're going to hold ourselves accountable. Best case scenario in the first round, we're going to have 3 best case, 3 worst case. So these, you know, whatever. The absolute best, we're partying, pizza party, high-fiving, etc., dapping each other up, is Ted McMillan. We're pumped. We're excited. Ted McMillan, this big body receiver who can really do some damage in the end zone, the red zone area. Obviously, let CeeDee Lamb continue to do his thing, continue to let CeeDee Lamb work on the slot. I see no issues. I have no notes. I have nothing but praise. I will stand up and applaud for the Cowboys the way that I did with how they selectively attacked, or they were selectively aggressive in their attack and free agency. So situation number 2, where we stand up and clap, is Will Johnson. All right, because I would rather, if the board worked that way, obviously, I would rather the Cowboys address the secondary. If, let's say, McMillan's gone, this is, you know, important here, because I wouldn't take anybody relative to context, relative to people who we believe are going to be available or have a chance to be available in all likelihood to the Cowboys at 12 overall. If for whatever reason somebody gets antsy and takes McMillan, but Will Johnson is there, you do it. I take him over Golden. I know a lot of people love Golden. I like him a lot too, and I can talk myself into him at 12 overall in certain circumstances, but I would rather it be Will Johnson over him. But I do think that a world where Matthew Golden is the pick at 12 overall is the 3rd best case scenario. Those are the 3. Now, again, if you told me somebody's calling up to trade from, you know, 6, 7, 8 spots down, I'm willing to entertain that. It's possible that that still develops into a better overall result than if you just sat there and picked at 12 overall. And I think that, you know, last year is a good kind of exercise in that, with the Cowboys moving down, still landing Tyler Guyton and landing, obviously, the 3rd round pick that became Cooper Beebe. So there are a lot of pros to trading back. I'm not going to, you know, deny that. And if I had an honorable mention, best case scenario for the Cowboys in the first round, it would be trading back, picking up another top 100 pick, and having that ammunition. That can be your running back. That can be your you know, obviously not your Cooper Beebe, but what Cooper Beebe was metaphorically for the Cowboys last year. So our 3 worst case scenario picks for the Cowboys, obviously, first round picks, I should say, for the Cowboys. Number 1 is exactly, well, I think we're, you know, number 1 is trading up. There's no question. There's nobody worth trading. I don't mean to say it that way, but there's no real incentive to trade up. You can completely, totally sit there at 12 and walk away with a legitimate playmaker. There's no need to rush. There's no need to panic. There's no need to trade up. There's no need to give something away. You've already, in fact, traded away a pick in this draft that you no longer have. And the trades we've seen the Cowboys execute to this point in the offseason, there have been 3 of them in exchange, obviously, for Kyrie Elam, Kenneth Murray, and Joe Milton last week. All 3 of them did involve draft picks, yes, but all 3 of them still involved the Cowboys getting draft compensation in return. Each of them was just effectively a tax on their original draft pick that they sent in the trades that they did. So The Cowboys, though, gave up. I shouldn't say gave up, but they gave up their 4th-round pick for Jonathan Mingo. They did technically get a 7th-round pick in return, so I suppose the tax on that 4th-round pick was just extremely great. But the point here is you've already foolishly given away your 4th-round pick, and it was such a bad trade that it was for a wide receiver, and we've sat here today and said that our absolute best case scenario, in fact, 2 of the 3 best case scenarios, involves spending the most premium asset on the wide receiver position. That's how bad of a trade the Jonathan Mingo one was. And the Jonathan Mingo trade, to be very clear here, can get worse. All right. The Jonathan Mingo trade can get worse if the Cowboys do something stupid in the first round. If Ted McMillan's there, if Matthew Golden's there, like Mel Kiper outlined, and they decide to go somewhere else, if they take Omarion Hampton and they come to the microphone after the first round, they say, well, we really feel like we drafted Mingo tonight. That's because tell me you can't hear that, right? Tell me you can't hear them saying that. We really feel like we drafted Jonathan Mingo tonight, and that's why we were able to go somewhere else other than wide receiver in the first round. No, you can't do that. No, we won't allow it. We refuse. That's DEFCON 1. All right. That's truly, we are pissed. We are upset. We are mad. We're not even panicked at this point in time. We're just red in the face. Forget silver and blue. So worst case scenario number 1 is Cowboys trade up. Worst case scenario number 2 is Omarion Hampton. I hate to put a name to it like that because I think he'll be a good player in the NFL, and this really isn't about him as much as it's about kind of the theory and philosophy behind this whole situation. And some of it is honestly the scar tissue that we have as Cowboys fans and the running back position and spending premium assets and resources on it and doubling down and whatnot with Zeke Elliott. And it was never Zeke's fault, the same way it wouldn't be Omarion Hampton's fault. But that is the second worst case scenario behind only trading up. And the third worst case scenario for me is honestly Ashton Genty. And I recognize, again, that there are a lot of you who are fans of his game and feel like he'd be amazing and feel like he's a home run hitter and feel like he's the best running back in the class and whatever. That's great. You can feel that way. I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. All right. I'm going to tell you that you're wrong. And I disagree with it because this is not a team that is in a position to be that luxurious, right? If you want a running back that badly, if you want a star running back, a difference making running back, then go pay for one. Go pay for one in free agency because you can do that, right? You didn't want to do that. You signed Javonte Williams and you signed Miles Sanders and whatever, but I do not think that it would be wise for the Cowboys to spend a first-round pick on a running back. And to be clear, I do not think that they think it would be wise. And that kind of goes back to what we started talking about at the very beginning of this thing. There are several ways in which the Cowboys are discussed on a national level that happen only because of the Dallas Cowboys. And this isn't a woe is me and, our poor Cowboys and nobody understands us. This isn't that at all. But what it means is that you have hopefully people like me in your life who can help break down and decode things because the national media leans into the hyenas around the world. And they know that there are people who will kind of take this bait because it's the Dallas Cowboys. And so they can say something like, well, Jerry Jones isn't afraid to draft a running back in the first round. And that was technically true once upon a time. And they did draft Zeke and they did double down and they did bring him back. And it was silly and ridiculous, right? So I'm not saying that there's zero truth to this, but are we going to sit here and be like, the Jaguars are not afraid to draft a running back in the first round because they took Leonard Fournette the year after that Dallas took Zeke? Or, the Giants, they're not afraid to draft a running back in the first round because they took Saquon Barkley, right? Like, is that a take? Like, is anybody throwing that out there? Well, the Giants need to replace Saquon and they just spent the whole year having that whole thing rubbed in their face. No, nobody says that because even the Giants aren't as big as the Cowboys, right? The Jaguars certainly aren't. That's no offense to the Jaguars. But that being said, we do not have to do it this way. We do not have to be silly. We do not have to be dumb. We can just, parse through the Cowboys of it all and move forward with levels of logic and levels of reason and levels of seriousness. And I think that that's a fair request, right? It's the same way, again, that people, this has chilled a little bit, but people will be like, Jerry Jones is a wildcatter. He wants a big free agent. No, he doesn't. They do not. Have you not been paying attention? So again, I feel fairly confident that Dallas would not be taking a running back in the first round. But I would add that my confidence is also why this would be really the worst case scenario. I'm almost prepared to say that it's the true worst case scenario as opposed to even trading up. Trading up for a running back is like, now we're just really looking for a whole different team. But the reason I think be number one, or it's arguably number one, is because trading up for a running back would prove that they just are drafting a running back at 12, without trading up. It would really prove that they have learned nothing. It would really prove, or it would suggest that they have learned nothing. It would suggest that they've learned nothing, and it would give life to all those memes, and it would give life to the fact that they'll do this and they'll do that. And that would be very, very, very annoying to have to sit through for a very long time. Beyond the fact that it would make the football team not as good as it could possibly be, it would be very annoying for us to have to deal with, because let's be honest, whoever you are, wherever you are, and however you are, you have friends who root for other teams, or friends who like to give you a hard time about being a Cowboys fan. And if the Cowboys took Omarion Hampton at 12 overall, like Mel Kiper is suggesting that they could, your friends would drag you and you would have nothing to do. You would be like Michael Jordan in the what the Monstars have set up for him if they win, if the Monstars beat the Toon Squad, where he's like chained to the hoop and he has to watch everybody like climb up the stairs and beat him. That's what you would be. That's what we would all be if the Cowboys took Omarion Hampton at 12 overall. Again, nothing against Omarion Hampton. This has nothing to do with him personally, individually. I wish him health, wealth, happiness, and success in the NFL. But this is about the Cowboys and the best ways and the worst ways specifically that they can utilize that 12th overall pick. So to be clear, best, Ted McMillan, Will Johnson, Matthew Golden. We're great. We're partying. We're having a great time. We're super pumped. We're all super duper happy. We're all just floating. We're on cloud nine. It's the best possible night of our lives. Worst case, trade up is really, really, really far-fetched. But it's definitely up there, especially trade up for our running back. But as far as practical worst case scenarios, it's drafting a running back. And it's especially drafting a running back because we have now been at a point relative to the draft process for a long time now where we don't think that Ashton Jeanty is going to even be there at 12 overall. So think about how long the first round is, right? Going from 6 to 12 is like an hour, right? So Ashton Jeanty will have been a Raider for like an hour. It will have been so long that he'll already have done like his introductory press conference with the Raiders and whatnot. And then Dallas will get on the clock and take Omarion Hampton. Dude, no, I don't think we could handle that. Like we've just kind of started to heal and to rebuild after all of last year. So if you did this to us now, I don't think we're ever getting up off this mat. I really think it would be that difficult of a blow. I think it would really just kind of take all wind away. It would take the sail away. We wouldn't even be able to be a sailboat anymore. We would just be floating, hoping that somebody discovered us in the wide, kind of general ocean. So, I suppose, another alternative worst case scenario for exploring non-running back options. Let's put the consensus big word up here one more time, just to kind of, cover all bases. I really think that's really it. Because look, we can have conversations about these names. These aren't practical, realities. We're dealing in this section of the draft, right around here. Although you have to scroll a little bit further down to get Omarion Hampton's name in the picture. Any real kind of move here is difficult to be mad at, and that's why, honestly, having the discussion, what are the best and worst case scenarios, is kind of a silly one, although I'm appreciative for you giving me the time to have it, because when you're picking this high, like we said at the very beginning here, it is difficult to do something that we will not be pleased with. It's very, very, very difficult. You almost have to try to do something for us to be mad, sad, upset, miffed, in a tizzy about. And the only thing that I would say is I would never put it past the Dallas Cowboys to find a way, because that's kind of been their thing for 3 decades, is just when you think it cannot be messed up, they put their hands up and they say, we got this. All right. Jerry and Stephen Jones say, you think we can't? Watch us work, right? Like that's the territory that, it will hurt less if we prepare for it that way. You know what I mean? We act this way just out of self-protection, which is, what we're all ultimately in this for. But this was a helpful discussion, a therapeutic one. I think at least it was for me, and I hope that it was for you. If you enjoyed these discussions, like I said, I'm live every Tuesday and Thursday in the Bleacher Report app at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you're not able to make the live show, you can catch it on demand in the Bleacher Report app or on demand on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If you are on YouTube, love you. Like the video, subscribe, please, 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 and thanks. You can hit me up on social media, see all of my content all the time. X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ Ochoa. Search for RJ Ochoa on Blue Sky. I'm active on each one of them all the time. Follow me on LinkedIn if you want. Send me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. And make sure, of course, to check out bloggingtheboys.com 24/7, 365 for the latest and greatest in the world of Dallas Cowboys news, discussion, and analysis. Today is Tuesday, April the 8th. We'll be back on Thursday, April the 10th. Maybe we'll slip in some Masters talk. Who knows? Because the first round will be complete unless it gets rained out. I don't think that's going to happen. And then next week, we have a busier week than normal. So you don't want to go anywhere. The NFL draft is fast approaching, which means we have a lot of things to be discussing. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging out. And we will see you next time.